I'm so happy to be back here. It's just like going home. I met all the old friends and new friends. I'm so happy to see the growth of University of Macau, and it has really impacted the education world in such a shortest time. So all you have made tremendous contribution. I think you have not only done a lot to Macau people, but you have made significant contribution to the growth of the rising China. I'm going to share with you the fast-growing industry which support the e-commerce development. I will divide my speech into 3 parts. To start with, I will give you a short briefing on the e-commerce, followed by the present process management or the logistic flow. And the last part, what does this mean that the involvement of e-commerce logistics to people seeking work in the job market and the students and all those people that are interested on e-commerce development. Jeff Bezos started Amazon in 1995 with $250,000 from his parents' investment, and 2 years later, he went public in New York Stock Exchange, raising more than 400 million US dollars. 4 years later, Jack Ma or Alibaba also started his e-commerce business. 1999, he went public also in New York Stock Exchange, raising all-time record of $21.8 billion US. Jeff Bezos and Jack Ma had created their e-commerce empire, creating astronomical wealth and putting them as the richest man in the United States and China. E-commerce industry in China has attributed the success of e-commerce due to the support of very efficient e-commerce industry in China. Li Mei-sung, or ZTO, started his express service 16 years ago with just $500,000 RMB. And in 2017, he also went public in New York Stock Exchange, raising $1.4 billion. Now another one, or the logistic icon, Wang Wei. In fact, he started from Macau, but on their website, I also noticed that he started his business from Sundak, Guangdong Province, and he secured backdoor listing in the A stock market. Another one, I think, is more in touch with the people on the street, and that's the business to commerce, the B2C. The third one is commerce to commerce, the C2C. I think that's the business model of eBay. And the fourth one is from consumer to business. Some academics and business professionals have also added business to administration. That is the business to administration of government entities. Another one is from consumer to administration of business entities, that for people, they make payment to government. The most impactful changes of the e-commerce in the last 10 years. The first one is the rise of online marketplace, such as Alibaba, Amazon, eBay, JD.com. Another one is a seamless shift to using mobile phone device to do online shopping. I think we must thank China to be the leader in the manufacturing of mobile phones around the world. It's so easy to conduct and to do the online shopping over the mobile phone. Emails, social media, online games, apps, websites, and blogs have given a lot of tools for sales and marketing activity for those e-commerce professionals. The practice of using digital modification, which has also made online shopping so much easier by mobile phone and using VR or AR technology. And people, they can also see various types of merchandise just by using a headset. So what's the significance or evolution of e-commerce development? As you can see from this chart, that from 2017 to 2018, e-commerce sales has taken a lot of market share from traditional retail sales. The rise of e-commerce has changed the business and consumer buying behavior forever. China has risen very fast in terms of e-commerce development. Online retail sales in China were half of that of the United States in 2010. By 2023, China has surpassed the US, growing at an average rate of 56%. Now, I think that in retail sales, the annual growth is in the region of 4%. It is forecast by 2020, China e-commerce market will be bigger than the combined total of the existing market share of the United States, United Kingdom, Japan, Germany, and France put together. So who are all these leading e-commerce platform companies in the world? I like to suggest that the e-commerce platform nations are closely related to the strength or GDP of each country. And no doubt, the United States is still leading the world in terms of GDP. No wonder we see that Amazon.com, eBay, and Wish, they are very powerful and very active e-commerce platform. Shortly after that, Jack Ma has joined the game by creating the second largest e-platform company in the world. And in China, we have other also powerful e-platform companies such as JD.com. Now, who are the other high GDP countries after United States and China? We will see that Japan is the next one on the roll, and they have their own platform company. However, the less powerful company will do it in a more traditional way. They would have the more different working partner in their own area or in other parts of the world. In a typical express operator, if they don't have the scale to cover the whole world, so what do? They will try to find working partner around the world. They send the e-commerce goods by air, in most cases, and sometimes by ocean as well, to the city or destination. And if they are big enough, they might have their own operation at the destination. But for most SME, they would probably work with a partner. They consign these goods to the partner. Sometimes they do the commercial clearance themselves. Others, they also farm out to a professional custom broker. Having cleared the goods, they might pass on to another trucking company to do the last mile delivery. That is probably the most common channel for most SME in this part of the world to conduct their business. For those, they don't have the integrated service. They have to do part of the jobs themselves and farm out the rest to a working partner around the world. And one of more desirable service, in my personal opinion, is the ethic postal delivery mode. By that I mean, express service provider will be responsible to organize the line haul, that is the air transmission part from origin to final destination. In China, a law was passed in 2015 prohibiting all foreign post office from engaging into mail business. And I believe Hong Kong has the same law. Foreign post office are not allowed to engage in the mail business in Hong Kong. So a number of forward-thinking postal authorities around the world have started to commercialize their brokerage and last mile delivery service. Coupled with a number of forward-thinking logistics service providers, they partner with the post office who are prepared to commercialize their last mile delivery service. So what they do is to send the goods from the origin, from Hong Kong and China, to an intermediate point on air cargo mode. In that case, they will not, and they have not violated the postal law in China and Hong Kong. So when the goods arrive at the intermediate point, the postal office will take it over and forward it to the final destination as mail mode. Now, the beauty of this combined service is that, as a general practice, custom authorities around the world are very lenient to postal office because they are also government, and they conduct an uncomplicated formality, and normally they do spot check of 3%. Now, some of the e-merchants in China, they know the whole supply chain too well. So sometimes they misdeclare by under-declare so that the receiver will not be required to pay duty, so that the online shopper will shop again. And because they have such an extensive coverage to cover the last mile delivery, so they do offer a very good last mile delivery service. And in certain markets, like Russia, for instance, a typical example, is so big, even integrator like DHL, Federal Express, and UPS, they have to farm out the last mile delivery to Russian post, except in big cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg. Some of the e-commerce items are rather inexpensive. So to pay air freight, this would discourage customers, would discourage online shopper to shop again. So what the express service provider has developed is a new service which has come into the market only in the last couple of years, and that is civic parcel delivery. Now imagine there's a strong imbalance of trade between Asia to North America and Europe. In peak season, normally from August to December, it's very difficult to find air capacity. And very often, the goods are stuck at the origin or at the intermediate point. So sometimes the goods get stuck for 3 to 4 weeks. So they might as well send those goods by ocean. So they use the fast boat, 11 days, the goods will come from China and Hong Kong to the West Coast United States. So they consign to their working partner there. Again, they try to clear the goods themselves or appoint a third party to do the clearance, having completed clearance on commercial basis. They give back to USPS, US Post. US Post would do the last mile delivery on a postal mode, so as to enjoy the no postage between or within United States. And I think that's the why Donald Trump campaigned that US Post have been so nice to Chinese shipper, because Chinese shipper can take advantage of low postage within the domestic market. One of the challenges in e-commerce or e-commerce logistics is the reverse logistics for those items which are rejected and have to be returned. Why? Since they have paid when they do their online shopping. I suppose because under commercial clearance mode, the custom authority would spend more time looking into the document to see whether the goods and the value declared on the document match with each other. And if they found that the shippers under-declared the value, so they would ask the receiver, consumer, to pay duty. Now, if the receiver, the consumer, are not prepared to pay the duty, the goods will be rejected and returned to origin. Another factor is during peak season, if the goods take 3 to 4 weeks to arrive destination, the online shopper will probably forget what they offer for something which is of relative low value. So it is estimated that the reject ratio is something like 20 to 25%. And I suppose this is a China scenario because China have been shipping a lot of relative low value merchandise from Shenzhen. Let me go back to integrate a little bit because it's so important for the transportation world to rely on their services. Boeing Aircraft does an annual report which spell out the load factor in each and every major route globally. Without exception, in the last 30, 40 years, Trans-Pacific or eastbound Trans-Pacific route that is from Asia, mainly from China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Korea, to North America, has led on this development. And at best, they only achieve 8% growth. On other intercontinental and international routes, the percentage is lower than 8%. For the integrator, in general terms, we always say they outperform the traditional air cargo mode by achieving 15%. But if you look at this chart, Federal Express achieved 17% or more from 2013 to 2017. I think I'm right in saying that in the last 30 or 40 years or so, the integrator have taken the cream from the air cargo transportation, enabling them to expand in such a high growth rate. We are talking about how best a commercial enterprise can start a service with some of the efficient postal authority around the world. And here are the major postal operators. They are heavily involved to support the logistics development or e-commerce in the last 10 years or so. The largest one, not surprised, is the China Mail because they have the law to protect them to handle all business originating from China. But other post office, they still find a way to handle small bid from China on illegal basis. But there's so much mail business going out from China, I suppose. China Post would be happy to have post office to find ways to handle the capacity problem so as reduce their own pressure. Otherwise, big customer like Alibaba, JD.com, they would complain to China Post. China Post, apart from negotiating capacity from the airline operating in China, they've been unable to get the capacity they need to handle all mail traffic they receive throughout the country. So what do they do? They also use the air capacity in the forwarding community, both in China and in Hong Kong. Now, this part of traffic has supported Hong Kong air cargo transportation in a substantial way in the last few years. Back in 2017, the market was so bad. Airline company offered single-digit rate, which was lower than what they charged 20 years ago. But the e-commerce traffic started to flood into Hong Kong. So in the second part of 2017, the air cargo rate had gone up 3 to 4 times, creating an unprecedented situation that all airlines in Asia were unable to cope with the demand of e-commerce development. Now, next one, which is important to e-commerce logistics, is the US Post, because the ability to do the last mile delivery in a very competitive manner. So, not e-commerce, small and medium-sized express operator in China, they use the Airfix plus postal mode, and the shipment end up in the United States, and USPS clear the goods and do the last mile delivery. Royal Mail is a very important one because they are superior air connectivity. They are also very flexible, and in fact, they were much ahead of the other post office in terms of commercializing the last mile delivery. So they even allow postal office from the developing country to set up an office in London. They call this extraterritorial office exchange. The benefit is that in the postal world, they call it Universal Postal Union. They divide the postal office by 5 categories. United States, European, Hong Kong, they are rated level 1. But some of the level 5 or level 4 operators, such as Solomon Islands, some of the names you have never heard, like Fiji Island or Cambodia, I suppose we have heard recently, they pay much lower postal rate. So by letting foreign office to set up the E2 office in London, of course, with the consent of Royal Mail, so they have more support and be in position to offer very competitive last mile delivery service. So they attract a lot of shipment coming from China and Hong Kong, consign to Royal Mail in London, and they do the last mile delivery through the network around the world. So all these post offices are very active in Airfix plus postal delivery service. I think they offer a very attractive and cost-effective channel of transportation for the e-commerce and for the e-commerce logistics industry. I mentioned earlier the difference between postal clearance and commercial clearance. As I said, the reason why postal channel is so attractive because e-commerce shipper, if they choose to use Airfix plus postal mode, they will probably misdeclare. And they know that the customs authority would only do 3% spot check. If some of the goods are caught too bad, they treat that as a general expenses. So 97% are under declared value. They do away with the duty. On the other hand, on air cargo plus commercial clearance and delivery mode, custom authority would do a more serious job, and from time to time, they also catch those shippers they under declared value, and they ask the consumer to pay that duty. The consumer, in most cases, are not prepared to pay, so the goods are rejected and returned to origin. So that's why unless postal authority do some stupid thing, and sometimes they do. One of the oddity is that in the postal world, sometimes they just announce the price adjustment without notice. But in the commercial world, well, you have to give notice, you have to give 2 weeks or 4 week notice if you want to increase your price. So I think that's the downside by using the postal channel. So that's the benefit and advantage of the air freight plus postal delivery channel. They are price reasonable. The last mile delivery is dependable because by law, post office are required to do the last mile delivery no matter where consumers locate. I do not know how long this air freight plus postal service will last. They are planning to remove the duty-free limit by 2021. At the moment, in Europe, the threshold is 22 euro, and in the United States, 850. Now, one day when they will remove this limit, probably there are more shipments going back from postal channel to the commercial channel. When I look at this chart, I'm always very excited. The rise of e-commerce will give a lot of support to e-commerce logistics. This would give a lot of business for those e-commerce logistics service providers. Why the general freight has suffered since 2008? E-commerce has been taking market share from the traditional retail sales. In other words, general freight will continue to have difficult time, and the freight will be channeled from the traditional channel to e-commerce. But still, many airlines, they are not react to these changes, and probably, and that's also the reason why common airlines have been losing the battle to e-commerce operators in the last 40 years. Fred Smith of Federal Express, he started his business in 1965. He went public, or he started his overnight service in 1969. And in the last more than 40 years, he has been leading the empire himself. But the general appointment of the airline manager is normally between 4 years to 6 years. The incumbent manager would not do much or anything to create competitive advantage for his successor. That's human weaknesses. Because if he spend his budget to do anything to benefit his successor, the credit will go to his successor. Why his evaluation is based on his current performance. But in the case of Alibaba or Runway or SF or Federal Express, the entrepreneur who start the business, they've been driving the business until they retire. And sometimes they don't retire like Lee Ka-shing. So I suppose as long as its founder and the entrepreneur stay in the business, I suppose that commercial enterprise is rather safe, is worth considering to invest. Sometimes I'm confused when I talk about the figure trillion. It's just too many zeros to count. But anyway, this huge figure. A lot of potential for those people that are involved in e-commerce logistics, from logistics professional in sales, marketing, operation, IT professional, ground operator in the terminal at the airport. This would create tremendous opportunity for those people that are interested in the industry. I suppose that many things I want to say, I can say, but I think in such a short time, it will be beyond my ability to try to condense it in such a way that I convey everything I want to speak. But if you do have any question, I would be happy to share with you if I can answer your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lau. And now it's time for Q&A. May we now invite Professor Jackie Hong, Program Director of the Master of Business Administration Program from the Faculty of Business Administration, to the stage to be the moderator.
So in fact, I think I do have a question. I mean, let me kickstart the conversations. I do have a question, and we did talk about it a bit, I mean, before the talk. I mean, with the announcements of this Greater Bay Area initiative, so what will be the opportunities and challenges for the logistics and e-commerce industry in this area? So what would be your thoughts of this Greater Bay Area initiative?
From the newspaper reporting, it appeared to me Macau will be designated as gaming center, convention, tourist, and I wonder whether Macau can leverage on the high growth on the manufacturing sector in Shenzhen, in the Greater Bay Area. The logistics industry in Hong Kong in the past had tried to analyze when Hong Kong, Macau, Zhuhai Beach has become operational, in what way they can benefit from that development. And we seem to think that because of close proximity between Macau and west part of Pearl River Delta, so goods manufactured in western part of PRD can channel through Macau and taking advantage of the Hong Kong, Macau joint business. But we also discussed this morning, it seemed to me that there's no direct trucking service from Macau Airport to Chek Lap Kok Airport. Goods had to be transloaded in an intermediate point. This would create delay and extra cost. I don't know if something Macau administration is prepared to take it up with central government to allow Macau to also get involved on the fast developing of the e-commerce traffic going out from the PRD. During the presentation, I did not mention, according to one of the reports computed by Pricewaterhouse, 75% of e-commerce goods are manufactured in Shenzhen. Out of these 75% of goods manufactured in Shenzhen, another 75% are being shipped through Hong Kong. But shipping to Hong Kong and shipping to Macau, if Macau build the infrastructure, the cost should be the same. So Macau should also play a role, maybe not cover the entire world, but Macau can adequately cover ASEAN countries. That's another very big economy. You're talking about 2 billion people, so that's a big market enough.
So thank you, Dr. Lau. So now let's open up the floor to questions from the audience, from students, from colleagues. So any question? So Professor Len, you have a question?
Hi, Dr. Lau. Yeah. Lin Xiu Tong, yeah, BA. Yeah. So I actually is teaching exactly IT and logistics and supply chain management. So that's a very good guest lectures. So that's why I also
That's the-
attend my.
Petitioner's view.
Yeah. Okay. So question about Wangcom. So I remember several years ago, PC and I went to office to discuss about this topic, Wangcom, Hengqin. So several years ago, that actually is a good chance for logistics. So we, for example, the location, to build a logistics center there or processing center. Now the Wangcom becomes more and more very expensive. So I'm wondering, do we still have any chance for logistics industry, Wangcom? If not, do we have the other locations to kind of a substitution with a Wangcom? Thank you.
Your comment has reminded me the opportunity for Macau in terms of penetrating into ASEAN countries. Macau is west of Hong Kong. In fact, some logistics company has started trucking goods from Shenzhen and Guangzhou to Hanoi. It takes about 24 hours. The air capacity between Hong Kong and Macau to Hanoi is not sufficient to cope with the air traffic. Now, with a reliable trucking service, with 24-hour transit time, I think it's doable to ship goods from Shenzhen, Hongqin, Macau to Hanoi, connecting the airline flying out from Hanoi. In this respect, Macau has a competitive advantage over Hong Kong because of close proximity to Hanoi.
Okay, so other questions? Yes, the student over there. Yes, please. Just introduce yourself a little bit.
Good afternoon, Dr. Lau, Professor Jackie. I'm a sophomore professional accountancy student. So after the lecture, I couldn't help but think that the whole supply chain is a very tedious project. And it must, for goods to cross international borders, it must require a lot of repackaging or packaging and so on. In Europe, there is a trend of zero waste shopping, which is encouraging consumer to go zero waste, which means there's no packaging. So with the rising urgency to tackle climate change, I wonder if there is anything that should be encouraged or should be done by the tycoons of this industry to help in the cause. Thank you.
The environment issue.
I think in a free economy, ultimately the service and price count. If the SME can create a business model which excel the business model created by tycoon, I think they have an important role to play. I think tycoon, they are smart. They try to get the business from the upstream. I'll give you a good example. And I wonder whether the entire forwarding industry in Hong Kong can make as much as the free terminal operator, namely Hector, AAT, and Cathay Cargo Terminal. Now, these three big terminals, they are the games or tycoon from big investor. So for those, they start from scratch, so they have to work their way up until they become another legal thing, then they can pay the big game.
Because we have a saying that doing good by doing well. I mean, certainly business have some role to play. I mean, in societies and sustainability. Okay. So, Professor So?
Thank you, Anthony. What a nice talk. So my name is Tony Lee, Lee Gong Yu. I heard you're talking about Singapore. Okay, so I have one question about technology. So China is developing the 5G, as you know, which is very jealous by US right now. So what will be your opinion in that kind of technology impact? So when 5G take place, I mean almost take place, and the launching of IoT, Internet of Things, would there be any beneficial to China or Asia in the e-commerce business, especially the logistic applications? Thank you.
I'm not even a beginner on 5G technology. I'm going to attend a lecture on the occasion of the next UOM Hong Kong alumni dinner party later this week. So I'm going to learn more. But in general terms, I suppose 5G would enable all industry, especially on the manufacturing technology sector, to move 10 times, 100 times faster. So this would have an important impact on the manufacturing and on the technology sector. Professor, so maybe you would like to comment.
So 5G, big data is always the trend.
Thank you. Actually, I may be grade 1 in 5G, so I don't know much about it. But I do know the new iPhone is going to cost a lot of money. So you could download the movie within I don't know how many seconds, right? So when I heard about that news, I said, okay, do I really need that fast, 5 seconds to download the movie? What was 5 minutes? I mean, so definitely the technology is for bigger kind of project, and I think it's coming. But what I want to share actually is not about 5G because I don't know much about it. But I want to react to or echo the students' comment about the packaging. Actually, that would be commercial time now, okay? That would be a conference in May hosted by the Macau Monetary Authority, Green Finance, and the Portuguese-speaking country. I would be a speaker to talk about green finance, that's why I had commercial time. The idea as consumer is reuse, or you talk about refused, 3R, not to use it, not wasting, so it's R. Reuse is packaging, so the suggestion is, when you use this package, reuse it again for next time. Just like your Christmas gift package, reuse it the next time. Or recycle, right? So the answer is right there, okay? Again, to save the world, to save take care of the global warming issue. So again, go to that conference to have something there. Then I do want to make one remark about Dr. Lau's comment because actually I know him for a long time. And he was actually a consultant, recommended a consultant company to build a man-made island, now the Zhuhai, Hong Kong, Macau superhighway. So what happened is he's definitely the expert. And then he make one suggestion, one recommendation to the Macau government, which is make a lot of sense. I still think is opportunity there. Macau's airport is under capacity. Hong Kong airport is over capacity. That is why Hong Kong is trying to build the third runway. So Dr. Lau's suggestion is why not use a truck, right? And very expensive in Hong Kong. Move some of the cargo, excuse me, to Macau and ship it out, just like what he suggests. You know what? Lately, they just announced that the Air Macau franchise expire. So that would be a market approach. That means other companies will go in and compete. So I think it may happen pretty soon that there will be some other entrepreneur go in to do the truck in between Hong Kong and Macau. So the manager happened to be UN alum, so you may want to contact him that there's job opportunity for sure. So that's a long remark. I cannot answer your 5G question, but it's something I really want to share. Thank you.
So the opportunities are really booming in this area. So any other question from the audience? Yes, so please.
Hi, I myself is an e-commerce business owner, and I'm very intrigued by your topic, and I'm very glad to see undoubtedly that we are aware that China is doing very good and investing so much into this area. My question would be divided in two parts. The first part would be, given the strategic investment of China and because China is the manufacturing center in the world, and the political instability in the West, particularly, the trade war between US and China, and that reflects a lot of inequality that Chinese have created in other countries. So what do you see the obstacles will bring about to the e-commerce industry, in which is largely built up in the international cooperation for things like logistics that you spent a lot of time talk about? The second question will be, do you think the current situation of the big companies, so-called tycoons, like Alibaba, Google, Facebook, this company is a result of a free market? Because the way I see it, most of these companies have the privilege that is protected by a lot of political powers, like China. The mobile payment without the government support, I don't think it's very likely for this company to grow so big. So do you think such system that big companies are extracting a lot of profit from smaller business is actually sustainable? Or do you think it's natural, this is everything is included, it can be explained by the free economy?
Let me answer your second question first. I think in a free economy, these gigantic company will use their financial strength, buying into other industries, driving a lot of small and medium-sized business, our business, creating unemployment. I think possibly the government administration in time to come would have to do something to make sure that ordinary people would be able to compete or closing the gap to compete on an equal footing. You cannot imagine if Amazon continue to buy into department store, airlines, terminal operator, in the name of a free economy. In the same way, government is doing a lot of things to help the underprivileged. So I like to think that the government, the leader in the world, had to really think whether there's a limit and constraint for those gigantic companies for the benefit of most people on earth. Now, your first question was that whether this shifting of manufacturing activity, the impact of such a shifting. In fact, industrial shifting has started 30 years ago. The electronic industry moved from Silicon Valley to Japan, Hong Kong, Korea, Malaysia, China. This has created logistic need. Some countries, including China, they found it too expensive for them to engage in certain type of low-end manufacturing. So they would be happy to let these low-end manufacturing activities shift to the other more developing countries, so as to put pressure for the manufacturer at home to upgrade the industry, climb up the value chain. I think this may not be entirely negative. This creates additional business opportunity and upgrade the industry. So at the end of the day, hopefully China can find ways to engage in other more value-added manufacturing activities.
So the business environment is always changing, and the businessmen will always have to equip themselves to handle the challenges. So I think we still have time for 1 to 2 questions. So anyone want to ask questions? Okay. So let me take advantage of being the moderator. I can always ask one more question. So we'll talk about a little bit in this morning as well. So Shenzhen is coming up. So they just surpassed Hong Kong in terms of GDP. So in terms of logistics, so I mean, what future role can Hong Kong play again in this Greater Bay Area region?
If I have the answer, I think I should get a medal from Hong Kong government. It's such a complex question. Hong Kong used to be the top port. We lost it to Singapore, Shanghai, Shenzhen, Ningbo, Busan. Now we are ranked number 7. So we are concerned that one day we will lose our top port as a business air cargo airport. Hong Kong's winning strategy is air connectivity. In terms of supply chain, although China had developed a lot of new routes overseas, but if the goods had to be further transited in another intermediate point, Hong Kong has an advantage. When goods arrive in Hong Kong in a predictable manner, in a fixed time frame, and 24 hours later or shorter, it will arrive destination. So in this respect, Hong Kong government has been working very hard in the last couple of years to develop new routes. So Hong Kong is now connected with some 140, 150 international cities. This would enable suppliers to try to send goods to Hong Kong, taking advantage of Hong Kong's superior air connectivity. Looking in the future, if the goods are manufactured in the Pearl River Delta, logically it would be more cost-effective to ship down from the PRD. But there are other considerations: expertise, international exposure, experience for those people engaged in the trade. And I like to think, and this is also happening, that more and more Hong Kong logistics professionals will move back to Shenzhen. Now Shenzhen, they can afford to pay big money, handsome bonus. And when the Greater Bay Area is progressing, this would create a lot of opportunity. In fact, we have to admit, we have to forget, we have to really correct our big brothers concept. If they can do better, we have to admit they're better. Maybe we should join hands with them. And join hands, I think we will feel much better. They pay their role, we pay ours. Our ability is to make friends with the people around the world in this respect. I think we have gained a lot of experience. Now, let me share you a very interesting discussion yesterday I had with a Russian gentleman. He is an e-commerce merchandiser. I asked him to share with me his view about Hong Kong Chinese, mainland China, Taiwan Chinese. He said, these three group of people, they are Chinese, but totally different. Now, in the case of Taiwan, people dress very simple. He said they are very much influenced by Japan. I said, you're quite right, because they were occupied by Japan for 60 years. But in the case of the mainland China, so excuse me if what I'm going to say would offend some people, I don't mean it. He's buying from e-merchant in Wuhan. The owner is somebody who has made a fortune in e-commerce at the age of 29, 30. So he brought up some of the issue with this owner. And his owner summoned his staff and shouting his staff in front of the guests. He said, that's something we won't do. So I think we have to learn from each other. So in time to come, if China, if Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan will be integrated in the big family, we all Chinese, we learn from each other, create more opportunity, and create a better world.
I think it's always better to cooperate rather than compete. I think that's a very good, advice to all of us. I think for the interest of time, I think we need to, call an end to the Q&A section, and let's join again, to give a warm applause to Dr. Lau for his fascinating Q&A and speech. Thank you very much, Dr. Lau.